All right, welcome to a tutorial on installing an Autogate on X-Plane 11. I did a number of tutorials earlier on how to install Autogate using the overlay editor. However, with the latest upgrade in X-Plane 11, the overlay editor no longer works. So we need to use an alternative, and the alternative would be World Editor. So I'm assuming in this tutorial that you know nothing about World Editor. I hate tutorials that start out by saying, we assume that you know everything there is to know about World Editor, and so if you knew everything there was to know about World Editor, why would you be watching the tutorial? So this tutorial assumes you know nothing about World Editor or even Autogate and how to install it. There are two systems for Autogate. One is called Autogate, the other is called SAM, which stands for Scenery Animation something or other, Scenery Animation Manager, I guess it is, SAM. So SAMs are much more powerful, but they take longer to install. The reason being is that you actually have to start X-Plane 11 and tweak the gate once you install it using the World Editor. So we're just going to focus on using the Autogate plugins and using World Editor. So this assumes you know nothing about World Editor, and there's not a lot you have to know in order to use it to install Autogate. So there are three things, however, that you have to download in order to install Autogate for X-Plane, and so that's what we're going to cover first. The first component is the actual Autogate plugin that functions with the X-Plane jetways, and you can get this from the X-Plane forum. Just go to the forum and download the plugin. This is like xplane.org, and you can download the plugin. Just you need to, of course, sign in and then download the file. You'll notice there's something here called Development Kit. You also need to download the Development Kit. And the plugin, which is this file here, you just unzip it and put the folder right into the plugins folder on your X-Plane 11. The Development Kit, however, we'll talk about it a little bit later. You have to put components of it into the actual custom scenery folder for the airport that you're going to modify. And then, of course, the third thing is the World Editor. So just Google World Editor for X-Plane 11, and it's probably also available from the X-Plane forum.org forum. Downloaded the latest version of the World Editor. And so those are the three components that you need to install Autogate. Once you download those components, say into your download folder, you'll see once you unzip them here, you have the World Editor. And this actually is a standalone editor. In other words, you don't need to install it. You just double click on it, and it's an executable file, and it loads up World Editor. The other two files, the Autogate, you need to download this folder here called Autogate and put it into your plugins folder. And that's all there is to installing that portion of it. Then you have the developer kit, and you'll notice there's a number of items in here. And these are the jetways here, either glass or steel. And you don't need to install all of these components into the custom scenery folder of the airport you're working on. You only need to install the items that you want. So in every airport that I work at, I install three things. One is the marshaller. The other is the helper, which outlines from the gate where to place the marshaller. And then I use Jetway's glass or steel, depending on the airport and whether or not it has glass gateways or steel gateways. So those are the three things that I always download and put into the custom scenery folder. And then these are just electronic docking stations as well, and they're available, but I always like to use the marshaller waving his batons to guide the plane in. So that's those are the three components, and I'll get to where to install the components for the Autogate kit here a little later. So once you've downloaded the items, you want to launch World Editor to create the custom scenery folder that you want to modify your airport and put the Autogates in. So you start up the World Editor, and you'll notice here on the World Editor that the Toronto Airport is not there. You've got the Toronto Island Airport here. So we have to create a new scenery package. And you need to choose, first of all, your X-Plane folder so it knows where to put it. But if this isn't the first time you're using World Editor, then you can go to creating a new scenery package. And since Toronto isn't there, we need to create a scenery package for Toronto. And it'll put untitled here. So we'll put in the airport code for Toronto, which is CYYZ, and then just put Toronto so you remember what it is. Then you open the scenery package, and the scenery package is blank. So once you open it, you'll come to a blank screen like this, because all you've done is created the name of what you're going to call your airport, but there's nothing there. You can see here it says no current airport. So the first thing we want to do is to load the Toronto Airport, the default, or one of the default airports of Toronto. And in order to do that, you have to go under the File menu here and import airport scenery. So this goes to the Airport Scenery Gateway, where all of the airport developers upload their files and make them available to the public to download. So you just type in CYYZ, and up comes Lester B. Pearson International. You click Next, and it will bring up a list of available airports. So you can look at this list here, and it tells you some information about it. It's nice, and accepted by the moderator, but not yet evaluated. And then usually I take this recommended airport up here if I'm trying to put an Autogate in an airport, because a moderator there's moderators that look at everybody's airport's design, make comments on them, approve them or don't approve them. And so this one is a recommended one. So we'll go ahead and download this one here. So we'll go to import the packs. So this will import the airport, and so when it comes up, it looks like this, which is why many people find it intimidating and wondering, how in the world am I going to add Autogate to something that looks like that? And so most people give up and don't want to spend the time learning World Editor. So we're just going to show you the basic tool that you need to add Autogate, and you only need one tool. There's a whole toolbar here, but the only toolbar you get, one you're going to use is this one up here called the selector tool. So that's an easy tool to learn how to use, and we're going to use it to add Autogate to the airport. Now, before we add those folders that I said to this custom scenery pack, we need to verify that the airport itself is going to be able to be saved, because World Editor, when it goes to export something for a scenery pack, it verifies that there aren't mistakes in the airport. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like using World Editor to add Autogates, because almost in every airport there's mistakes, and some of them are critical, and they don't allow you to export it and to save your airport as a custom scenery folder. So what do? Well, you have to fix the mistakes, and that's fixing somebody else's mistakes. And if you don't know World Editor, that can be a very daunting task. So what you can do in that case then is to try and download another airport that doesn't have mistakes, and keep looking till you find one. Whereas Overlay Editor, it allowed you to put in Autogates on airports that would be full of mistakes by World Editor, and they still worked. Anyhow, that's just aside from the fact. So to test this, we want to export it as a scenery pack here, because currently in our custom scenery folder in X-Plane, there isn't a folder called Toronto Airport. We have it loaded in World Editor here, but we haven't really saved it yet. So let's try and export this and see what happens. See if there's any mistakes in the airport. And as you see, with nearly every runway created, there's a mistake. And this is a critical mistake that won't allow us to save it. You can edit the scenery, but it won't save it. Sometimes it'll allow you to dismiss it and continue if it's not a critical mistake. In that case, then you're fine. You know, sometimes they have the winds, the airport allowing a plane to land when the winds aren't in the right direction and the right velocity, etc. So there's a lot to creating an airport, and to create an airport without mistakes is very difficult to do. Anyhow, this is not allowing us to do that. So what do? Well, we could try and download another airport and see if it doesn't have any mistakes, or we can try and fix it. In this case, there's only one mistake, and it's a truck route, and it intersects with a runway. So we can quickly look, well, not real quickly, but you can look at the airport to try and find that truck route that intersects the airport. And so the easiest way that I've found to do that is you can turn off the visuals on everything here, because as you're looking at this here, it's very clustered with everything showing up. So we're going to turn off the visuals here and just hone in on the ground routes, make that the only thing that's visible, and everything else we're going to turn off, and then it'll be much easier to find things. Okay, so all of the airport objects and items and lines and everything else, they're created under nice headings here, so that, and that's one thing if you're creating airports, is, you know, follow the good protocol on creating things. And I'll also get to it when we're adding our Autogates too. What we want to do is add our Autogates under ramp starts here, because this will show you, and also to label our Autogates so that it's easier to find them once we create them. So let's just start turning off things here, and until we're down to just our taxiways, and then we can find out what we're looking at here. we're going to leave the ground roots on because that's where the air is. Alright, so it's easier to see things when everything disappears and you're just left with one thing to look at. This is the case is the ground roots. And you use your mouse wheel to zoom in on things. And so it said the air, you use the right mouse wheel to move the map. So you use the right mouse wheel to move the map and the mouse, and you use the zoom wheel to zoom in. So I think I see the problem right here where it said where the ground route goes out onto the runway, and that's the problem area right there. So we'll just zoom in a little bit there, and we'll just use this marquee tool here, maybe just to click off some areas there and delete them. All right, so that should fix the problem now of the ground route running onto the runway. So World Editor is very picky in terms of saving runways, and in order to save this now, we have to turn things back on, or we will be saving a blank airport without any runways or taxi routes or anything, so we have to make things visible. When you go to export things, if you forget to make it visible, it won't save it as it'll just assume it's not there. So we've got everything clicked back on again. Now let's save our airport. It saves it as an XML file, and if you forget to save it, you can go ahead and add all the Autogates that you want, and then you go to edit it again and your XML file is not there. You'll see, you think all your Autogates have disappeared. They really haven't, but you can't edit them without the XML file, so you have to actually import that file and things again. It gets a little messy. Anyhow, we've got what I think is a good airport now, but let's just verify. Airport export the scenery pack, and we'll see if we get any errors. All right, no errors came up, so it looks like we have a good airport here now that we can go ahead and add our Autogates to. And so that's how you import the airport into World Editor. Verify that it's good. You don't want to start working on an airport that's bad, because then all your work goes to waste when you're trying to fix errors. So that's the step on importing the default airports so that you can work with them and add Autogate. So the next step in adding Autogate is to add the development kit folders that you want into your airport. And you remember we downloaded this Autogate kit here. And I said that in every airport I like to just add the items that I want to use at that airport. So I'm going to use a marshaller. I want a helper, which shows me where to place the marshaller. And in this case I'm going to use glass jetways. So I select those three things, and then I have to put it into this custom scenery folder for Toronto. And as you can see now, the custom scenery folder for Toronto has been created. So we just take those three folders and dump them into Toronto. And now everything is available in World Editor for editing. So now we'll open World Editor again and start adding the Autogates. So now we're going to get down to the business of adding Autogate. So once you add those folders to your custom scenery folder, you need to actually, if you have World Editor open, you need to close it and open it again. And when you open it again, you'll see now that you've got the Toronto Airport there available to open. So you open that as a scenery package. And when you first open the scenery package, it can look a little intimidating. And you wonder, where in the world, how do I add an Autogate to that? If you look over here, you'll see now that those folders that we put in there, the marshaller, the helper, and the jetway glass, they're all available here over in the local folder now. So those are objects that are available for us to add to the airport. So now when you go to the center pane here, which is the airport, what you want to do is find that gate that we're parked at. And this involves looking at the map of the airport and figuring out exactly where the gates are on it. So the gate that we're currently parked at is called A2. And I believe it's right down in this area here, and we'll verify that in a second. So looking here now, the World Editor gives you a bird's eye or an overview, and here is the gate right here. If you click on it, see it says A2, so we know that that's where that plane is that we have in the simulator loaded, that it's parked at gate A2. And this line here is actually the jetway coming out. If you click on it, you'll notice that it says here it's a facade node. All right, and so we have to get rid of that, but leave it in place for now until we add our gateways or jetways. So let's look at that. So this is where we want to add it. So now over here are our tools for adding an Autogate. And if you click on one of these Autogates here, it gives you a picture of what it looks like. And to add it, you simply take your mouse, go to this gate here, follow the line down like that, and that shows you where it's going to come out to. And what you want to do is connect it to the main building there, and there's different availability of the objects here. So I don't particularly like that one. I think we can get something closer, so I'm going to just undo that, and I'm going to pick another one here. We'll try, say, the straight one here. We'll see if that is any better, and we'll go for the 16-foot just to see if it works. Again, you just click on that. All right, so that's not bad. That's not bad. So what we need to do is just build a bridge over there, but we could probably get a little closer, so we're going to undo that and pick maybe the 18-meter one here just to get a little closer. Again, follow the line down. All right, that's pretty good right there. So that we're going to use that 18-footer there. So this Autogate actually will work right now. If you park your plane there, this gate will move back and forth to connect to the plane. But for appearance's sake, we want to connect it to the main building here. And that's why we have connectors. We have little glass connectors here. We'll try a 10-foot one and see how that works. And I've never figured out exactly why it doesn't follow your mouse when you draw it to connect to here, so you have to rotate it. But that isn't a problem. You need to click on this arrow key up here, the selection tool. Just zoom in, and we'll just rotate this around. And you just click on that arrow there, and boy, golly, that looks pretty darn good. And we can move it just a little bit just to ensure that it connects. And zoom out, and there's your gate, your first gate A2. So you can see it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not complete yet. We have to remove this one here, and we have to install the marshaller. So in order to install the marshaller, you'll see up here there's helpers. And if you click on the helper, there's a green zone object. So just take, again, your mouse and go follow that line down. and it'll create a green zone there. And what you want to do is put your marshaller somewhere in that green zone. So click on the marshaller, and I always like to put him offset, facing the plane to the right, because usually it's the pilot parking the plane, and if you put him right in the center, quite often there's a window barrier pane in the middle there that blocks the vision of them. But you also need to put him far enough back so that you're not standing up in your seat trying to see him as you're parking the plane. So I like to put him back about here, slightly off to the right if you're facing the plane. And then all you do is just click and drag parallel to the cone. So if you would parallel to the side of the cone, so that he's facing towards the center of where the plane comes in. And that's all there is to it. Now all we want to do is remove this green zone here. So we don't know exactly where that it placed that green zone. So we know that it's called a green zone. So I just type in that, and then you can see here that it's a green zone object. It just placed it at the top level under world. So just click on that, delete, there goes the green zone, and you're all set. And then we have to remove, you click the marquee or the selection tool here, click on that facade point, click on this one here, and there's your gate, fully installed and operational with the marshaller. Before I export to the custom scenery folder, I like to delete what's there just to make sure that it actually is putting what I want into those folders. So you go to the EarthNav data folder here under the Toronto Airport. Here's your app dat. Just delete that. Go to the reference here, the DSF. Delete that. And then you can go back to your world editor and export it. So from the world editor here, now you go to the file menu and you save it if you haven't saved your work already. And then you go export scenery pack. Now I've only added one gate here. Typically, I would do a whole section before exporting the scenery pack. And you could probably do an airport. Oh, I forgot one thing to mention, and I had mentioned it earlier, but then forgot about it, and that is naming your gates that you put in here. So we created a gate here, and we just need to find out what it is. I'm just going to move that over just a little bit. What happens when you're putting things on top of one another is that it's hard to find exactly. So here's the Autogate here, but I want to rename that so that it's later on when I'm looking at the airport, I'll know what it is instead of them all being labeled the same thing. And so I'll just call this A2, which is the gate. So it's Autogate A2 object. Then I'll put that gate back on. Whoops. Remember to use the selection tool. I'm going to put that Autogate back on top of this here so that I'm ensured that when I park my plane, the Autogate's going to work. Go back to save here. All right, now we want to export to scenery pack. And that's all there is to it. And I'll demonstrate now when we load X-Plane that we've got an Autogate at A2. Okay, as you can see now that we're back in the airport, that the Autogate has been installed properly. And if you look at inside the plane, you can see that our marshaller is there as well. So you can see why I like to offset the marshaller just a little bit so that he's right in line with the pilot when you're coming in. As if he's a bit to their left, they can be obstructed from you by the center column here. So that's all there is to installing the Autogate using WED editor, and I hope you enjoyed the video and are able to modify many of the airports in X-Plane. And I'm hoping that as new versions of X-Plane are released, and even airport developers, as they create new airports, that they put in the Autogate, because it really enhances the experience of flying when you have the Autogate. So I think if I release the parking brake now, this should move. There it goes. So that's proof that the Autogate is working correctly, and it's moving back from the plane. So happy flying, and fill the airport with Autogates to improve the flying experience.